Okay. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classics as Non-Classics. This is episode number 1608 and Doubleshot number 1502. Now, both these two trades have one thing in common. Both feature beautiful women from two different companies. Alright, first up is some Star Wars. We have the relaunch of Dr. Aphra. Yep, this trade, which is called Fortune and Fate, which is the first trade that collected issues from Dr. Aphra Volume 2. Now, before I talk about what happened in this book, I have to talk about something that is kind of an irritation when it comes to Marvel and their comic books. Now, it was announced, this was about almost 2 years ago, I think this was, where they announced issue 40 was going to be the final issue of Dr. Aphra, which I was not happy with that, given the fact this book is actually really good. I think both Karen Gillian and Simon Spurrier did an excellent job on the book. Don't worry, I will get to Alyssa Wong and her stuff here, but let me put this down here for a minute. I personally love the book. I think that both writers did a fantastic job of the book. And here's the thing. When the book basically became solely Simon Spurrier, here's the thing that, unlike, let's say, Star Wars did this, where when they changed writers for that one, they actually kept the number going. As a matter of fact, the writers changed twice over the course of 75 issues. First it was Jason Aaron, and then it was Karen Gillian, and then it was Greg Pak, who was the final writer of the book before it was relaunched on the Charles Show, which book is done really well under that tenure. Yes, I would say of three writers, Karen Gillian did not have some good issues here and there, but Jason Aaron's is beloved by a lot of people. People who love his work on Star Wars. Karen Gillian's stuff is okay. I think the beginning was actually pretty good. The middle is not that good, but the ending's actually pretty good. Greg Pak's brief run of the book was fantastic. In my opinion, this run helped save the series. Because I think Marvel maybe were worried that the main Star Wars book was not selling too well, given the fact the spin-off books actually selling pretty decently. And then they figured, okay, bring Greg Pak in the book, which the book did really well under him, both him and having Phil Noto take on the book as the artist. Now, in the case of the relaunch was pretty good. I've discussed that already in the first trade. But in the case of Dr. Aphra, both Karen Gillian and Simon Spurrier had a pretty good idea what to do with the book. And when Simon Spurrier became the full-time writer, this is basically when Karen Gillian left the book. But here's something to think, though. Simon Spurrier came on as the co-writer during Karen Gillian's last story he officially did for the series, before he officially left and just to do Star Wars full time. Currently, the guy does The Eternals, which actually that's pretty good. I love his Star Wars book right now. It's really good. Now, in the case of I was not happy the book was ending, and then all of a sudden this was not announced. All of a sudden, Marvel said, "Oh, let's stop doing between episodes 4 and 5, between New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Let's have all the Star Wars books. Let's have all the Star Wars books be set in the same time period, so we're not going all over the place. Though we do have the High Republic series going right now, which that's 1,000 years. We have one series right now because all the previous series prior to this were set like all over the place, and the only comic book set in the same time period as the main book was Darth Vader, or it was." Well, first was Darth Vader, and this book kind of, in a way, was replacement for that. Because they did have a second volume for Darth Vader, and that took place during a 19-year time skip. Roughly took up like the first year of the time skip. And, of course, Dr. Aphra was a character introduced in the pages of Darth Vader in issue 3. That's also introduced two of her supporting characters who came with her in the book. There was 000 and the Black Archd2. Yes, they became supporting characters in the book for a little while, and then basically when Karen Gillian was wrapping up his run for the book, he pretty much wrote them out of the series. He did briefly bring him back for a few issues, but they do bring back one of the characters from that book, and that's Black Caspian, the Black Chewbacca. They bring him back because initially he was written out too, and I think Alyssa Wong must have liked this character so much, he basically brought this character back and made a regular part of Dr. Aphra's crew. Because now she has got a full crew. Because in the previous line for this series, she usually was operating by herself with basically the droid just with her occasionally. But that was simply the gist of the original volume for the book. Though a portion of the book basically was her being a prisoner and also having a relationship with a female Imperial officer who she had the hots for. which after the first two issues, she disappeared for a while, then she came back, and then the course of reunited, made out, and they had sex. By the way, they had sex twice over the course of 40 issues. And then they briefly lost memories, and then she got back. And then her last appearance was in the Empire Ascent one-shot, which came prior to this, which that was collecting the last trade to collect issues of the previous one for the series. Here, it's right afterwards, and that female Imperial officer, that female Imperial officer, I don't remember her name, she's gone. Completely gone. She is completely dropped from the book. I don't really know why. I think that her and Dr. Aphra had a really good relationship. Now, I should point out, though, Dr. Aphra is an open lesbian character. Me, personally, I don't have a problem with this at all. As long as it's not like she's an original character created for this continuity. I like the fact now, there's some people who don't like Dr. Aphra. And the thing is, they don't like her for some reason. And I like her purely because she's different. She doesn't have to be like a lot of the other Star Wars characters. Yeah, she interacts with them. As long as you don't out characters like Han Solo or Princess Leia or even Luke Skywalker is gay, having an original character created for this continuity to be a lesbian is perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, here's a fun fact for you. Did you know there was actually a lesbian couple in the Rise of Skywalker? Yes, there was. Yeah, there was a brief lesbian kiss in the movie. That one person pointed out, though, that particular shot was probably cut out of the Chinese cut of the movie, which it probably was. Now, I have no problem with lesbian characters in the book. Now, my thing when it comes to characters who are either as gay or bisexual, or at least a lesbian, particularly this, if it's an original character created by the actual writer, it's perfectly fine. If it's a long established character who never had any hints of being gay, looking at you, Iceman, Marvel, that was really stupid, outing Iceman as gay. But this character being lesbian, no problem with it at all. It's perfectly fine because she's an original character. It was Karen Gillan who out of there is that. The only character I can have an exception to that, basically, was Northstar. Because John Byrne wanted him as gay back in the 80s. But Jim Shooter said no gays at Marvel. Though eventually he was out of this gay by a different writer. At least it was pre-planned. Iceman was basically done for pure shock value. This was fine when it comes to basically her being a lesbian. Now, mostly put, she's basically worked with a group of people who... Some of her she went to archaeology school with. Now, I'm not really sure. Now, mostly put, it's kind of like a heist book. And it's not a book that's really talked about very much when it comes to the Mar books. I would say of the 4 Star Wars books, this is kind of a little more of the weaker book of the main books. Because if you think of, aside from this book, there are 4 other books. You have Star Wars, Darth Vader, The Bounty Hunters, which is really good. I love that book. The Stack is a really good book. And Star Wars, The High Republic. Now, this was the 4th Star Wars book of the relaunch for Star Wars, which I am the opinion that it was perfectly fine. I had no problem with the relaunch. Now, Alyssa Wong herself, in my opinion, does an absolute fantastic job writing this book. Though it's probably, in my opinion, like reading this is the weakest of the first trades released for all the new Star Wars books. Yeah, this is by far the weakest one. Excuse me. So, you have Dr. Aphra doing her usual thing of basically, having a crew. Well, her having a crew is kind of new, but not really. Aside from the Black Cassian, they have a bunch of new characters in this book. By the way, the artwork here is done by Marcia Cursita, which I believe this was the artist for the previous line for the series. Yes, I believe it was. And by the way, Black Cassian, you probably notice though he's got a scar over his eye. Here's a fun fact for you. Guess who did that to him? And you might be shocked about this.